17 calls. She made 17 calls to her husband while contractions ripped through her body on that freezing December night. 17 desperate attempts to reach the man who had promised to love her in sickness and in health. And every single one failed because he blocked her number. While Lauren Whitmore screamed through labor alone on her kitchen floor, her millionaire husband Chase was lifting champagne glasses at a luxury hotel with another woman. He looked at his phone, saw his pregnant wife calling, and deliberately pressed block. He whispered to his mistress, finally free of her, and ordered another bottle of champagne. He had no idea that single decision would cost him everything. What Chase did not know was that his wife had a secret worth $4.2 billion, a secret that would turn his perfect life into a prison cell. In the next 90 minutes, you will witness the complete destruction of a man who thought he was untouchable. You will watch a broken woman rise from the ashes and become more powerful than anyone who ever underestimated her. You will see justice served in ways you never expected. But most importantly, you will discover why the night he blocked her call was not her ending. It was his. Value statement and lesson. Before we begin, I want you to understand something important. This is not just entertainment. This is a mirror. The lesson woven through every moment of this story is simple but powerful. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. And when life forces you to your knees, remember, that is the perfect position to rise. You deserve love that shows up. You deserve respect that does not require begging. And you deserve a future you can walk toward without fear. If any part of this story speaks to something you have experienced, you are not alone. Millions of people have stood exactly where Lauren stood, and millions have found their way to the other side. Snow hammered against the apartment windows that December night, the kind of bitter New York cold that made every breath feel like swallowing glass. Lauren Whitmore clutched her swollen belly as another contraction ripped through her body, so violent it brought her to her knees on the cold kitchen tile. Her iPhone trembled in her shaking hand. The screen glowed with a number she had called 17 times in the past hour. 17 desperate attempts to reach the man who had promised to love her in sickness and in health, for better or for worse. She hit redial one more time, her finger barely able to press the button through the pain. And then her screen flashed a message she never imagined seeing in the middle of labor. Call failed. The person you are trying to reach has blocked you. For a moment, the world went completely silent. No wind howling outside, no sirens from the street below, just the echo of her own disbelief crashing through her mind like a tidal wave. Chase did not pick up. He did not text back. He blocked her. On the night she was bringing their son into the world, her husband had deliberately cut her off. Lauren slid onto the floor, her back against the kitchen cabinets, her white knuckles gripping the counter edge. Her breath came in ragged gasps, half from the contractions tearing through her body, half from the gut-punch realization that she was alone. Truly, terrifyingly, completely alone. Across the city, in the glowing warmth of the Park Hyatt ballroom, Chase Alden was lifting a crystal glass of champagne. The chandeliers imported from Italy shimmered above him as he laughed at something whispered into his ear by a woman who was not his wife, a woman named Ava Sinclair, whose red lips brushed against his neck as she murmured words Lauren would never hear. He never saw his wife's desperate calls. He never cared to look. Back in the apartment, Lauren forced herself up, teeth clenched so hard she thought they might crack. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she grabbed her hospital bag with trembling hands. Okay, you can do this, she whispered to herself. She pressed a hand to her belly as another contraction stabbed through her like a knife. But as she reached the door, her strength faltered. Her vision blurred, her legs gave out. She collapsed against the wall, phone dimming beside her on the floor, and in that breathless, shaking moment, she whispered something Chase would never hear. "This is the last time I will ever call you." Outside, a taxi's headlights swept across the fresh snow. Inside, Lauren felt her world fracture quietly, cleanly, and forever. Something had ended, but something far more powerful was about to begin. The world had not always been cold for Lauren Whitmore. There was a time when even the grayest New York morning felt warm because Chase Alden stood beside her. Back then, he was not a millionaire in tailored suits, striding down Fifth Avenue, with investors hanging on his every word. He was just a hungry dreamer with a cracked laptop, a rented desk, and a co-working space, and a smile that made Lauren believe the future could be theirs. They met 6 years earlier at a tiny coffee shop in Brooklyn. Both of them reached for the same last blueberry muffin on the counter at the exact same moment. Their fingers touched over the wrapped pastry, and Chase laughed first. It was an unguarded, boyish laugh that did not match the calculated charm he would later perfect. He offered her the muffin. She insisted they split it, and somehow, that small compromise became the foundation of everything that followed. What Chase did not know, what Lauren had carefully hidden from the very beginning, was that she was not simply a junior data analyst struggling to pay her Brooklyn rent. Lauren Whitmore was actually Lauren Ashford, the estranged daughter of Victor Ashford, founder of Ashford Capital, a private equity firm worth $4.2 billion. She had run away from that world at 21 years old, changed her name, and built a life where people loved her for who she was, not what her family could give them. She wanted to be wanted for herself, not her inheritance. And Chase, with his passion and his dreams, and his absolute certainty that he would change the world, seemed like exactly the kind of man who would love her for her heart, not her bank account. Back then, Lauren worked long hours crunching numbers at a Fortune 500 company. She was not glamorous, she was not flashy, but she had stability, something Chase admired deeply in those early days. "You are the calm in my chaos, Laura," he used to say, pulling her close after another 18-hour day building his startup, and she believed him. She believed him when he promised success would never change the way he looked at her. What Chase also did not know was that during the darkest month of his company's existence, when Alden FinTech was 48 hours from bankruptcy, Lauren had secretly funneled $2 million from her hidden trust fund through a shell corporation. She made it look like angel investors. She saved his dream without him ever knowing it was her money that kept his company alive. She never told him. She never wanted credit. She just wanted to be his partner. Their wedding was small and intimate. 20 people on a rooftop in Queens with fairy lights strung across the railing, and Manhattan, shimmering like a promise behind them. Chase held her face in his hands that night and said words that would haunt her years later. "I could never do life without you." The sincerity in his eyes made it impossible to imagine he would one day turn away from her at her most fragile moment. But somewhere along the way, success wrapped around Chase like a second skin, changing him cell by cell until the man she married no longer existed. The man who once packed her lunches and kissed her forehead before work slowly transformed into someone who spent more nights at sleek midtown lounges than at home. His decisions became sharper, colder. His messages grew shorter. His laughter changed, too. No longer soft and boyish, but performative, calculated, meant for audiences, not for her. Lauren saw the distance forming like a crack spreading through ice, but she kept believing the man she married was still in there, somewhere. She just did not know that the version of Chase she loved had already died. Ava Sinclair did not enter Chase Alden's life like a storm. She slipped in quietly, like a cold draft under a locked door. Easy to ignore at first, until the chill finally settled into the bones of everything Lauren held dear. Ava joined Alden FinTech during a period when Chase was obsessed with building his public image. He needed someone polished, sharp, and able to charm investors before he even opened his mouth. Ava was all of those things: strategic, poised, and frighteningly intuitive about exactly what Chase wanted to hear. Lauren first met her at a company holiday mixer 6 months before everything fell apart. Ava approached with a flawless smile, her red dress a shade too bold for the event, but no one seemed to mind because she wore it with the kind of confidence that made other women feel underdressed and other men feel desperate to impress her. She shook Lauren's hand with both of hers, as if they were old friends reuniting after years apart. "So nice to finally meet the woman who keeps Chase grounded," Ava said. Her voice was warm and sweet, almost too sweet, like honey hiding poison. Lauren tried to brush off the uncomfortable twist in her stomach. She had met plenty of confident women before, but something in Ava's eyes, sharp and assessing, lingering a little too long on Lauren's wedding ring, felt like a warning she did not yet understand. Chase did not notice anything wrong. If anything, he seemed energized around Ava. He laughed louder. He talked faster. He glowed under her attention like a plant finally getting sunlight after months in the dark. Ava praised his ideas and amplified his presence. She whispered just one more thing into his ear between conversations, always positioning herself as indispensable. Lauren watched the shift happen in real time. Chase straightening his jacket, adjusting his posture, trying subtly to match Ava's polished aura. After that night, Ava appeared everywhere. Late-night meetings that ran until midnight, early morning strategy sessions that started before Lauren woke up, PR events where Chase insisted Lauren did not need to attend because she was getting too tired with the pregnancy. At first, Lauren believed him. She wanted to believe him so desperately that she ignored every red flag waving directly in front of her face. Pregnancy had drained her energy, and Chase always framed his requests as concern for her health. How could she argue with a husband who just wanted her to rest? But soon, the little things multiplied into an avalanche she could no longer ignore. Chase started hiding his phone. He turned away when texting. He spent nights at the office, but came home smelling faintly of perfume Lauren did not recognize, something floral and expensive, something that definitely did not come from any product in their bathroom. Still, the betrayal was not obvious yet. What made Ava truly dangerous was not bold cheating. It was subtle manipulation. She began sending Chase carefully crafted reports, painting Lauren as stressed, emotional, and overly sensitive. Normal for pregnancy, Ava would say casually during their private meetings. But maybe Lauren should not be influencing major company decisions right now. She seems fragile. Tiny seeds planted with deadly intention. And Chase, already drifting from the man he once was, let those seeds grow into a forest of doubt about the woman he had sworn to protect. By the time Lauren reached her 7th month of pregnancy, joy had become something she experienced quietly and privately, like a secret she carried alone in her chest, because sharing it no longer felt safe. Chase was always in a meeting, always on a deadline, always too busy polishing the life he wanted to present to the world to notice the life falling apart right in front of him. Meanwhile, Lauren navigated swollen ankles, dizzy spells, and late-night cravings alone in Bertseslum, their dimly lit penthouse overlooking the Manhattan skyline. The view that once took her breath away now just reminded her of how small and isolated she had become. One Saturday morning, she stood in the baby aisle of a store in Queens, holding a tiny gray onesie between her fingers. It had soft little bear ears on the hood. Simple, inexpensive, nothing extravagant. But the moment she touched it, her throat tightened with emotion she could not control. She imagined Chase beside her, his hand on her back, his excitement matching hers, the way it did in those early years when they dreamed about the family they would build together. Instead, her phone buzzed with a text from him. Busy today. Do not wait up. 4 words. No heart emoji. No question asking how she was feeling. The distance between them was no longer just emotional. It was physical, measurable, undeniable. Still, Lauren bought the onesie. She placed it gently in the cart, next to a pack of diapers and a small plush fox she could not resist. At checkout, the cashier smiled warmly at her belly. First baby? Lauren nodded. Yeah, she said, forcing a smile, even as her eyes burned with unshed tears. When she got home, she laid the new baby items on the bed where she slept alone most nights now. She folded the onesie with care, smoothing the fabric as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Around her, the apartment was painfully quiet. No laughter, no soft music playing, just the hum of the refrigerator and the hollow echo of a life growing emptier by the day. That night, Chase actually came home at a reasonable hour for once. Lauren placed his hand on her belly while they lay in bed, and the baby kicked gently against his palm. She held her breath, waiting for Chase to wake up fully, to smile, to whisper something sweet like he used to. He did not stir. His hand fell away as he rolled over, already drifting into sleep. Lauren turned away and blinked back tears in the darkness. I wish you were here, with us, she whispered so quietly that only she could hear, really hear. The baby kicked again, as if answering her, and in that tiny movement, Lauren found comfort, a reminder that even in her loneliness, she was not truly alone. But she also felt a cold truth settling into her bones. She was already parenting this child by herself. Long before the baby arrived, she had become a single mother in everything but name. The night Chase did not come home for the first time was not marked by a fight or a dramatic exit. It slipped into Lauren's life quietly, the way all devastating things begin. She had made his favorite dinner that evening, lemon chicken with roasted vegetables and the soft dinner rolls he always asked for. The apartment smelled warm and comforting, a rare contrast to the growing chill between them. At 7 in the evening, Chase texted, running late, eat without me. At 9, she called, straight to voicemail. At 11, her stomach twisted with the familiar ache of dread. Midnight passed. Outside, the Manhattan skyline glowed in the distance, completely indifferent to the pain unfolding in a small apartment across the river. Lauren tried to distract herself. She opened her laptop and attempted to work through some spreadsheets, but the numbers blurred. Her chest felt tight, as if someone were slowly pressing down on her ribs. She checked her phone again. Still nothing. By 1 in the morning, worry tangled with something darker. Intuition. That unshakable, bone-deep knowing that every woman recognizes when something in her life has shifted beyond repair. She walked to the bedroom, hand on her belly, whispering to her unborn son, "It is okay, sweetheart. We are okay." But her voice trembled. Finally, at 2:14 in the morning, the front door clicked open. Chase stepped inside, and the soft glow from the hallway revealed the truth before he could speak. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie was missing, and faintly, so faintly, Lauren almost questioned her own senses. She recognized a perfume she did not own. Something floral and expensive, undeniably feminine. She swallowed hard. Where were you? Chase did not flinch. He did not apologize. His voice was flat and dismissive. Work dinner. It went late. Until 2 in the morning. It happens. Do not start, Lauren. You are being too emotional lately. Too emotional. The word sliced through her like a blade. 3 syllables that reduced everything she was feeling to hormones and hysteria. He brushed past her and went straight to the shower. She stood frozen in the doorway, listening to the water run. Each drop was a cruel reminder that he was washing off a night she was not part of, a night she was never supposed to know about. When he finally came to bed, he turned his back to her without a word. Lauren lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, one hand resting protectively on her belly. She did not cry, she did not speak. But in the quiet darkness, she felt the first major crack in her marriage widen. Sharp and cold and irreversible. 3 weeks later, Lauren sat alone in the dim waiting room of her doctor's office. Her hands trembled around her phone as she waited for Chase to arrive. He had promised he would come. It is important, she had reminded him that morning over breakfast. The 8-month ultrasound, the one where they would check for complications. I know, Laura. I will be there, he had said, adjusting his expensive pen in his suit pocket before rushing out the door with barely a glance in her direction. But now, 30 minutes past her appointment time, the chair beside her remained empty. Her doctor finally called her name. We can start without him, he said gently, but Lauren caught the pity in his eyes. During the ultrasound, as the technician traced the screen, Lauren blinked away tears and tried to focus on the miracle growing inside her instead of the emptiness beside her. She wanted Chase there. She wanted his gasp of awe when he saw their son's tiny face on the monitor. She wanted his hand gripping hers, his smile, his presence. But all she got was an empty chair, a void where her husband was supposed to be. The doctor's expression grew serious as he studied the readings. Mrs. Alden, your blood pressure is dangerously high, he said quietly. If you do not reduce your stress levels immediately, you could develop preeclampsia. This is serious. Where is your husband? Lauren could not answer. Her throat had closed completely. After the appointment, she stepped outside into the cold wind, her scarf whipping around her, as she finally called Chase. Ring, 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 voicemail. She left a message, trying to keep her voice steady. Hey, it went fine. I wish you had been there. I really needed you today. An hour passed. No response. That night, Chase finally texted at 10:47. Sorry. Busy day. How was it? Lauren stared at the screen, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over her. She typed out a long message explaining everything. How scared she felt, how the doctor mentioned signs of potential early labor, how alone she was starting to feel in this marriage, but then she deleted every word. She simply replied, "It was okay." Chase did not call. He did not ask for pictures of the ultrasound. He did not come home early. Instead, at 11:30, he sent another message. Ava needs me to review a pitch deck. Do not wait up. Lauren froze. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. Ava needs me. Not the company needs me. Not the team needs me. Ava. She read those 3 words over and over until they burned into her brain. She sank onto the couch, one hand pressed over her belly as the baby kicked softly, a reminder that she was not alone, even if she felt like the loneliest woman in the world. She dialed Chase one more time, hoping, begging for him to answer. He did not. The call rang until it died into silence, taking another piece of her heart with it. Lauren made a decision the next morning. She was done crying. She was done hoping. She was done being the fool who ignored every sign pointing toward disaster. She hired a private investigator. Diane Mitchell, her best friend since college, and a fiercely loyal immigration lawyer, recommended someone from her network, a former NYPD detective who now specialized in marital investigations. Within 48 hours, Lauren had everything she needed. Photographs of Chase and Ava at a boutique hotel in Midtown, holding hands in the lobby, kissing in an elevator, entering the same room at 9 in the evening, and not leaving until the next morning. Lauren studied each image with a strange calmness. The evidence confirmed what her gut had been screaming for months. But somehow, seeing it in black and white photographs did not break her. It freed her. Now she knew the truth. Now she could act. She waited for Chase to come home that Friday evening. She sat perfectly still in the living room, lights dimmed, the manila envelope of photographs resting on the coffee table in front of her. When Chase walked through the door, he seemed surprised to find her awake. "Lauren, you should be resting," the doctor said to reduce stress. The irony was not lost on her. "Sit down," she said calmly. "We need to talk." Something in her voice made him obey without argument. He lowered himself onto the couch across from her, loosening his tie. "What is this about?" Lauren slid the envelope across the table. "I know about Ava." Chase's face went through 4 expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, panic, and finally, the mask of righteous indignation. "What are you talking about?" Lauren opened the envelope and spread the photographs across the table, one by one. The hotel lobby, the elevator kiss, the room key in his hand with Ava's fingers intertwined with his. "This," she said. "I am talking about this." The color drained from Chase's face. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, remarkably, tears began streaming down his cheeks. "Lauren, I am so sorry. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. She manipulated me. I was stressed about the company, and she was there, and I never meant for it to go this far." He fell to his knees in front of her, reaching for her hands. "Please, please forgive me. I will do anything. I will fire her tomorrow, publicly, in front of the entire company. I will prove to you that you are the only woman I want. You are carrying my son. I choose you. I choose our family." Lauren looked down at this man sobbing at her feet, the man she had loved, the man she had secretly saved from bankruptcy, the man who had blocked out the world for another woman while his pregnant wife waited alone. Part of her wanted to believe him, the part that remembered the boy in the Brooklyn coffee shop, the part that had built dreams around his smile. "Prove it," she finally said. "Fire her tomorrow. Make a public statement. Show me you mean it." Chase nodded frantically, wiping his tears. "I will. I swear to you, Lauren. I will fix this." The next morning, Chase called an all-hands meeting at Alden FinTech. Lauren watched remotely through a video link Diane had helped her set up. Standing at the front of the conference room, Chase announced that Ava Sinclair was being terminated immediately for violations of company policy. Security escorted her out, while the entire staff watched in stunned silence. Ava's face remained perfectly composed as she walked out, her heels clicking against the floor with measured precision. She did not look surprised. She did not look defeated. If anything, she looked like a woman who had expected this and already planned her next move. But Lauren did not notice that. She was too focused on the relief flooding through her body. He did it. He actually did it. For one brief, beautiful moment, she believed her husband had chosen her. That night, Chase came home with flowers, expensive roses in her favorite shade of pink. He cooked dinner for the first time in months. He held her close and whispered apologies into her hair. "I love you, Laura. Only you. I am so sorry I lost sight of that." Lauren fell asleep that night, feeling something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. But hope, as she would soon discover, was the cruelest weapon of all. 3 days later, Lauren could not sleep. The baby was restless, and her mind kept replaying every moment of the past week. Something did not sit right. The firing had been too smooth. Ava's reaction had been too calm. At 2 in the morning, she slipped out of bed and walked to the living room where Chase's tablet sat charging on the counter. He had left his password saved. He had grown careless in his confidence. She opened it with shaking hands. At first, everything looked normal. Work emails, calendar invites, news articles. Then she noticed an app she did not recognize, something with a generic icon that could easily be overlooked. She opened it. Her blood turned to ice. Messages. Hundreds of messages between Chase and Ava, continuing through yesterday, through today, through an hour ago. The most recent thread destroyed everything Lauren had rebuilt in her heart. Ava had written. "That was quite a performance today. Academy Award worthy," Chase replied. "I had to make it convincing." She was getting suspicious. "Give it 2 weeks, and this will all blow over. Then we can figure out how to handle Lauren after the baby comes," Ava responded. "She is such a doormat." "How did you ever marry someone so boring?" Chase wrote back. "She was useful. Her savings helped fund the company. Now she is just an obstacle." Lauren dropped the tablet like it had burned her hands. An obstacle. That was all she was to him. All she had ever been. The firing was theater. The apology was a script. The roses were props in a play designed to keep her docile until he could figure out how to discard her completely. She sank to the floor, hand pressed against her racing heart, and let the tears fall silently. But this time, she was not crying from sadness. She was crying from rage. Lauren spent the next week planning her escape in secret. She started packing a small bag with essentials. Important documents, her passport, cash she had been slowly withdrawing from their joint account, baby clothes, the little gray onesie with bare ears that represented every hope she still carried for her child. Diane Mitchell helped her find a sublet in Queens. Off the books, paid in cash, untraceable. The plan was simple. Wait until Chase left for his next business trip. Slip away. File for divorce from a safe location. Start over. But Chase found the suitcase. Lauren had hidden it in the back of her closet, behind winter coat she never wore. But on Thursday afternoon, 4 days before his scheduled trip, Chase came home early. She heard him opening the closet doors. She heard the wheels of the suitcase rolling across the hardwood floor. She heard the silence that followed as he processed what he had found. When she walked into the bedroom, he was sitting on the edge of the bed, the suitcase open before him, the baby clothes spilling out like evidence of a crime. "Where do you think you are going?" he asked. His voice was different now. The charm was gone. The performer had left the stage. "I am leaving, Chase. I know everything." He stood slowly. The man who emerged was someone Lauren barely recognized. "You are not going anywhere," he said. His voice was cold, controlled, terrifying. "Excuse me? You think I will let you take my son? My heir?" "I will destroy you in court, Lauren. I have the best lawyers money can buy. You have nothing." Lauren stood her ground, but her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. "I have evidence. I have photographs. I have text messages." Chase laughed. Actually laughed. "And who would believe you?" He stepped closer, and Lauren instinctively stepped back. "You have been stressed, anxious, emotional. I have emails where you admit to having panic attacks. I have been documenting your mental instability for months. Any judge in this city will see you are unfit to raise a child." Lauren's blood ran cold. He had been building a case against her for months, while she was pregnant with his child. "So here is what is going to happen," Chase continued. "You are going to sit down, smile, have the baby. And maybe, if you behave, believe, I will let you see him on weekends." Lauren could not speak, could not move. She was trapped in her own home. 8 months pregnant, completely isolated from everyone who might have helped her. Chase picked up the suitcase and walked to the door. I am taking this to the office. When I get back, I expect you to be acting like a normal wife. Are we clear? The door slammed behind him. Lauren stood frozen in the center of the bedroom for a long time. Then she walked to the kitchen, picked up her phone, and deleted the conversation with Diane about the apartment in Queens. If Chase was monitoring her communications, she could not risk leading him to her escape route. She would have to find another way, and she would have to be smarter than she had ever been in her entire life. December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, New York City sparkled with holiday lights and the promise of joy. But inside the Alden penthouse, Lauren felt nothing but dread. Chase had left hours ago for what he called the company holiday celebration at the Park Hyatt. He had not invited her. He had not even pretended to want her there. "Be a good girl and rest," he had said on his way out. "I will be home late." Lauren sat alone in the living room, watching the snow fall against the windows and trying to calm the tightening sensation in her abdomen. The contractions had started around 8 in the evening. At first, she thought it was just the usual discomfort of late pregnancy, but by 10, they were coming every 15 minutes. By 11, every 7. This was not practice. This was real labor. And she was 4 weeks early. Lauren grabbed her phone and called Chase. Ring, 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 voicemail. She called again, and again, and again. 17 calls. Each one went unanswered. Finally, she tried one more time, her fingers slipping on the screen from sweat and desperation. Call failed. "The person you are trying to reach has blocked you." The words hit her like a physical blow. He blocked her. While she was in labor with his child, her husband had deliberately blocked her number. Lauren's water broke at 11:47. She collapsed against the kitchen counter as fluid pooled around her feet, and the contractions intensified to a level of pain she had never imagined possible. She was alone, completely alone. With shaking hands, she managed to dial 911. "I am in labor," she gasped into the phone. "I am alone. My husband blocked me. Please send someone." "Stay on the line," the operator said calmly. "Help is on the way." Lauren crawled toward the front door, pulling herself across the floor as each contraction stole her breath. She managed to unlock it just as darkness crept at the edges of her vision. The last thing she heard before the paramedics arrived was the sound of fireworks in the distance. Someone celebrating. Somewhere in the city, people were happy. Lauren closed her eyes and whispered to her baby, "We are going to be okay, sweetheart. Mommy has got you." The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens and fluorescent lights. A paramedic held her hand and asked questions she could barely answer. "Where is the father?" Lauren looked at him through tears. "I do not think I have one anymore." NYU Longone Hospital, 3 in the morning. Lauren had been in labor for 13 hours. 13 hours of screaming, pushing, and praying for someone who never came. The nurses had tried calling Chase. The automated message echoed through the room like a cruel joke. "This number has blocked you." One nurse, an older woman with kind eyes, squeezed Lauren's hand. "Oh, honey," she said softly, "I am so sorry." Lauren turned her face away. She did not want pity. She just wanted this to be over. And then a doctor walked in who would change everything. Dr. Mason Hale was tall, calm, and carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen the worst humanity had to offer and chosen to respond with compassion. "Lauren, I am Dr. Hale," he said, scanning her chart. "I am going to be here for every second of this. You are not alone anymore." Something about his voice anchored her. Maybe it was the certainty. Maybe it was the way he looked at her without judgment, only concern. The hours that followed were the hardest of Lauren's life. She screamed, she cried, she gripped the bed rails until her knuckles went white and her arms ached. Through it all, Mason stayed close. "You are strong," he said quietly during a brief moment between contractions. "Your baby is strong. You are going to get through this." At 2:14 in the morning, a piercing infant cry filled the room. Mason lifted her son gently, wrapped him in a warm hospital blanket, and placed him in her trembling arms. A tiny face, a soft whimper, a life she had brought into the world completely alone. Lauren kissed his forehead, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Hi, my sweet boy," she whispered. "Hi, James. It is just you and me now, and I promise you that is going to be enough." Mason watched from a respectful distance, giving her space for this sacred moment. "He is perfect," he said softly. "And for what it is worth, Mrs. Alden, he got all the good genes from you." Despite everything, Lauren laughed. A real laugh. The first one in months. "Please," she said. "Call me Lauren." 3 days later, Christmas morning, Lauren signed the hospital discharge papers against medical advice. Her body was screaming for rest, but her mind was focused on one thing only: getting out. Diane Mitchell arrived at 7 in the morning, wearing the same determined expression she brought to every courtroom battle. "I have got a sublet in Queens," Diane said, taking James carefully while Lauren climbed into the car. "Off the books. Cash only. He will not find you there." The drive across the bridge felt surreal. Snow still covered the city, but the morning sun made everything sparkle with a beauty that felt almost mocking. Lauren's new apartment was small, second-hand furniture, boxes she had not had time to unpack. But when she walked through the door and locked it behind her, she felt something she had not experienced in years: safety. For the next 2 months, Lauren rebuilt her life piece by piece. She changed her phone number, opened new bank accounts at a different institution, hired a family attorney named Sarah Brennan, who came highly recommended by Diane's network and had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless in custody cases. She filed for divorce and full custody, citing abandonment during childbirth. And for a while, everything seemed to be working. Chase's company was under SEC investigation for fraud. Ava had been subpoenaed to testify. The walls were closing in on him from every direction. Lauren allowed herself to hope again. She bonded with James, learning the rhythm of his cries and the comfort of his tiny hand gripping her finger. She started therapy. She began sleeping through the night again. Mason Hale checked in regularly, not as a romantic interest, but as a friend who had witnessed her at her most vulnerable and wanted to ensure she was healing. "How is my favorite little warrior doing?" he would ask about James during his calls. "And how is Mom holding up?" Lauren found herself looking forward to those calls more than she wanted to admit. But just when she thought she had escaped, Chase struck back. The custody papers arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Emergency motion for custody filed by Chase Alden, represented by the most expensive family law firm in New York. The allegations made Lauren's stomach turn. Lauren Whitmore kidnapped their infant son from the marital home. Lauren Whitmore suffers from severe postpartum psychosis, as documented by her own admissions of anxiety and panic attacks. Lauren Whitmore is financially unstable and unable to provide for a child. Lauren Whitmore is cohabitating with a romantic partner, endangering the child's well-being. That last accusation made her laugh bitterly. The romantic partner they referenced was Mason, who had stopped by exactly once for a routine checkup on James. One visit twisted into an affair by Chase's legal team. The hearing was scheduled for the following week, and the judge assigned to the case, Lauren would later discover, was an old friend of the Alden family. The temporary ruling felt like a death sentence. Based on the evidence presented, the judge announced in a voice that showed no emotion, I am granting the father supervised visitation pending a full custody hearing. Lauren's attorney objected. Sarah Brennan argued passionately about the circumstances of James's birth, about the blocked calls, about the documented abandonment. But the judge had already made up his mind. Supervised visitation, he repeated. 2 hours, once a week. A social worker will be present. Lauren had to hand her son to Chase while a stranger watched. She stood in the parking lot afterward, unable to stop shaking. Her arms felt empty. Her chest felt hollow. Every cell in her body screamed that this was wrong. And then the catastrophes began. The first hit came 3 days later. Lauren's landlord appeared at her door with an apologetic expression. "I am sorry," he said. "I have received an offer I cannot refuse. You have 7 days to vacate." He had been bribed. Lauren was certain of it. The second hit came the following Monday. Her employer called. "Mrs. Whitmore, we have received some concerning documents suggesting financial improprieties during your tenure. We are placing you on administrative leave pending investigation." Fabricated evidence. Lauren knew exactly where it came from. The third hit was the tabloid story. The headline screamed across every newsstand in the city. Millionaire's wife abandons husband during pregnancy hormones. Inside the bitter custody war. The article quoted a concerned colleague who wished to remain anonymous, but was obviously Ava. It painted Lauren as an unstable woman who had stolen a baby from a loving father. Within 72 hours, Lauren was homeless, jobless, and publicly shamed. Rock bottom had never felt so cold. Lauren sat in Diane's apartment, baby James asleep against her chest, scrolling through the comments on the tabloid article. She is obviously crazy. Look at her eyes. That poor man just wants to see his son. Women like her give all mothers a bad name. Each word was a knife. Each judgment from strangers who knew nothing about her situation cut deeper than the last. Her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost did not answer, but something made her swipe the screen. "Lauren?" The voice was older, gravelly, painfully familiar. "It is your father." Lauren stopped breathing. Victor Ashford, the man she had run away from 11 years ago. The man whose world she had rejected to build something of her own. "How did you find me?" she whispered. "I have been looking for you for years," Victor said. His voice cracked with emotion. "And now I am dying, Lauren. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe less." Lauren closed her eyes. She did not know what to feel. Anger? Grief? Relief? "Why are you calling now?" "Because I read the news. Because I see what that man is doing to you. And because I was wrong, Lauren. About everything." Victor's voice grew steadier, despite the tears Lauren could hear beneath his words. "I pushed you away because I could not accept that you were smarter than me, stronger than me, more principled than me. And now I am dying, and my only daughter is being destroyed by a man I can see right through." Lauren said nothing. She could not. "Let me help," Victor continued. "Not for me. I do not deserve your forgiveness. But for James. Let me do one right thing before I die." Lauren thought about everything she had lost. Her home, her job, her reputation, her sense of safety. She thought about the custody battle ahead, Chase's endless resources, his team of ruthless attorneys, the judge who was already in his pocket. She thought about James, her perfect, innocent son who deserved so much better than this war. And for the first time in 11 years, she made a different choice. "Okay," she said quietly. "Tell me what you have in mind." Victor Ashford might have been dying, but his resources were very much alive. Within a week, Lauren had access to an elite legal team. 5 attorneys, led by a former federal prosecutor, who had never lost a custody case. She had a private investigation firm staffed by ex-FBI agents. She had a media crisis management team ready to counter every lie Chase's people could spread. And she had forensic accountants. That last edition proved to be the most important. The forensic team dove into Chase's finances with surgical precision. They traced every transaction, every transfer, every suspicious movement of money over the past 6 years. What they found made Lauren's blood run cold. Remember that $2 million you invested through the Shell Corporation? The lead accountant asked during their meeting. The money that saved his company from bankruptcy? Lauren nodded slowly. He found it. He traced it back to you somehow, and then he transferred it to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands, in his name only. Chase had stolen her money, the money she had secretly given him out of love. He took it and hid it away, probably planning to use it for his new life with Ava. But the revelations did not stop there. The private investigators uncovered something even more devastating. Ava Sinclair had never been just an ambitious employee who fell for her boss. She had been planted at Alden FinTech by a man named Marcus Webb, a silent investor with a personal vendetta against Chase. Ava's job was simple: seduce Chase, gather compromising information, destabilize the company from within. She had been recording everything for 18 months. Every conversation, every confession, every cruel word Chase ever said about his wife. But here was the twist that changed everything. Marcus Webb was not just a random enemy with a grudge. He was Chase's biological father. Decades ago, Marcus had an affair with Chase's mother. When she became pregnant, she fled and married another man, raising Chase with no knowledge of his true parentage. Marcus had spent 30 years watching his abandoned son from a distance. And when Chase became successful, something dark awakened in him. A desire not to reconnect, but to destroy. To prove that the son who never knew him was worthless. He hired Ava. He orchestrated the leak that damaged the company. He was the puppet master behind every catastrophe that had befallen both Chase and Lauren. But Ava had the recordings, and Ava was tired of being a puppet. The meeting took place in a nondescript office building in Midtown. Lauren sat across from Ava Sinclair for the first time since that holiday party, where her instincts had screamed a warning she had been too naive to understand. Ava looked different now. The polished confidence was gone. Her eyes were hollow. Her hands trembled as she clutched a coffee cup like a lifeline. "Why should I trust anything you say?" Lauren asked. Her voice was calm, but her heart was pounding. "Because I am tired," Ava said quietly. "I have been Marcus Webb's prisoner for 4 years. He has evidence that my father embezzled millions from his former company. If I did not cooperate, he threatened to destroy my entire family. And that excuses what you did to me?" Ava shook her head. "Nothing excuses it. I know that, but I have something that might help you anyway." She slid a hard drive across the table. 847 pages of text messages, 42 hours of recordings, financial documents proving Chase embezzled your investment, and his own words about what he planned to do to you and James. Lauren picked up the drive, feeling its weight in her palm. "Why give this to me now? What do you want in exchange?" "Immunity," Ava said simply. "I testify against Chase and Marcus. I give you everything, and your father's legal team makes the criminal charges against me go away." Lauren studied the woman who had helped destroy her marriage, the woman who had whispered poison into her husband's ear and smiled while Lauren suffered alone. But she also saw something else, a woman who had been trapped by circumstances beyond her control, a woman who had made terrible choices and was now trying to survive the consequences. "I will think about it," Lauren said finally. She stood and walked toward the door, then she paused. "The recordings of Chase," she said without turning around. "Do any of them include the night I gave birth?" Ava's voice was barely audible. "Yes, he was at the hotel with me when you called. I have the moment he blocked your number on video. And I have what he said afterward. Lauren's jaw tightened. What did he say? Finally free of her. Those were his exact words. Finally free. And then he ordered another bottle of champagne. Lauren closed her eyes for a moment, then she opened them and walked out without another word. The legal team worked for 2 weeks straight. They prepared a countersuit so comprehensive it would make legal textbooks. Fraud, embezzlement, emotional abuse, intentional infliction of distress. Every crime Chase had committed was documented, cross-referenced, and ready for presentation. Victor Ashford, despite his deteriorating health, insisted on being involved in every strategy session. He reviewed evidence from his hospital bed. He made phone calls to old contacts who could expedite the SEC investigation. He did everything a dying man could do to protect the daughter he had failed for 11 years. One evening, Lauren sat beside him in his private hospital suite. "I never should have left," she said quietly. "All those years, I was so stubborn." Victor took her hand with fingers that had grown thin and fragile. "No, you were right to leave. I was trying to control your life because I was afraid of losing you. Instead, I lost you anyway." Tears streamed down Lauren's face. "I forgive you," she whispered. Victor smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him since she was a teenager. "That is more than I deserve, but I will take it." He squeezed her hand. "Now let's go destroy the man who hurt my daughter." Manhattan Family Court, 6 months after the birth. The courtroom was packed. Press filled the back rows, notebooks ready. Chase's investors sat nervously near the front, watching their fortunes hang in the balance. Victor Ashford arrived in a wheelchair, oxygen tank attached, refusing to miss the moment he had helped orchestrate. Mason sat beside him, ready to testify as a character witness. And Diane Mitchell stood near the door, grinning like a shark who had finally spotted her prey. Chase Alden walked in looking like a man who expected to win. His suit was immaculate. His attorney was legendary. His confidence was untouched by doubt. He did not know what was coming. The first hour belonged to Chase's team. They painted Lauren as an unstable woman suffering from postpartum psychosis who had kidnapped an infant from a loving father. They presented the fabricated evidence of her mental instability. They showed the tabloid headlines as proof of her unfitness. Chase himself took the stand and delivered a tearful performance. "I just want to see my son," he said, voice cracking with practiced emotion. "I love him. I love Lauren. I never stopped loving her. She needs help, and I want to be there for both of them." Some people in the gallery actually seemed moved. Then Sarah Brennan stood up. "Your Honor, I would like to enter into evidence Exhibits A through Z," she paused dramatically. "And Exhibits AA through ZZ." The defense attorney's face went pale. For the next 3 hours, Sarah systematically dismantled every lie Chase had ever told. She played the recording of him calling Lauren an obstacle. She displayed the text messages proving the affair had begun 18 months before Lauren discovered it. She presented the financial documents showing he had stolen her $2 million investment. She showed the hospital records documenting 17 blocked calls during active labor. And then she played Ava's video. The courtroom watched as Chase, on the night his son was born, blocked his wife's number, and said those words that would define him forever, finally free of her. Chase's composure shattered. He jumped to his feet. "She is lying. They are all lying. I built everything myself." "She contributed nothing." Sarah smiled coldly. "Actually, Mr. Alden, she contributed $2 million from her trust fund, the one you did not know about, because your wife is Lauren Ashford, daughter of Victor Ashford, heir to Ashford Capital." She let that sink in, and she has the receipts. The courtroom erupted. Chase stood frozen, mouth open, unable to process what he was hearing. Lauren watched him from across the room, the man she had loved, The man she had saved. The man who had tried to destroy her. She felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just the quiet certainty that this chapter of her life was finally ending. The judge called for order and announced his ruling. Full custody is awarded to the mother. The father's visitation rights are terminated pending criminal investigation. The court orders the father to pay $4.2 million in damages for embezzlement and emotional abuse. A restraining order is granted effective immediately. Chase tried to speak, but before he could form words, two SEC officers appeared at his side. Chase Alden, you are under arrest for securities fraud and embezzlement. Cameras flashed as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. The man who had blocked his wife's number while she gave birth was led away in front of everyone he had ever tried to impress. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed around Lauren. She held James close to her chest and spoke briefly. I was a woman who gave birth alone because my husband blocked my number. Today I am a mother who protected her son. If you are watching this and you are trapped in a relationship that makes you feel small, please hear me. You are stronger than you know. And you deserve better than someone who makes you beg for basic human decency. The clip went viral within hours. Millions of women shared it with comments about their own experiences. Support groups formed. Donations poured in. Lauren had not just won her case, she had started a movement. 1 year later, Central Park. Spring. James toddles across the grass on chubby legs, chasing a butterfly with the pure joy that only a toddler can feel. Lauren watches from a nearby bench, her heart fuller than she ever imagined possible. So much had changed in 12 months. Victor Ashford passed away 4 months after the trial, but not before reconciling fully with his daughter and meeting his grandson. He left Lauren his entire estate, including control of Ashford Capital. She was now a billionaire, though she rarely thought about the money. She had used part of her inheritance to fund a nonprofit called the Blocked Call Foundation. In its first year, it helped over 40,000 domestic abuse survivors escape dangerous relationships and rebuild their lives. Mason Hale sat down beside her on the bench, 2 coffees in hand. Beautiful day, he said, handing her one. It really is. They had grown close over the past year, not in a rushed, dramatic way, but slowly, carefully. 2 people who respected each other's healing and had no desire to repeat past mistakes. Mason pulled out a small gift bag. I have something for James. Well, technically, it is for both of you. Lauren opened the bag and found a handmade children's book. The cover read The Bravest Mom. She opened it with trembling hands. The pages told a simplified version of her story. A mom who faced a monster and won. A mom who chose to be brave even when she was scared. A mom whose love was stronger than anything that tried to break her. Inside the front cover, Mason had written an inscription. For James, your mother faced darkness and found light. You come from strength. Never forget that. Lauren's eyes filled with tears. The good kind. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. Mason shrugged with that dry humor she had come to appreciate. I just showed up. You did all the hard work. James came running back, butterfly forgotten, arms reaching for Lauren. Mama? Up, she lifted him onto her lap, pressing kisses to his cheeks while he giggled. For a long moment, the 3 of them sat together in the spring sunshine, a picture of peace that had been earned through fire. Lauren had one more thing to do. The federal correctional facility was cold and gray, everything institutional and stripped of humanity. Chase sat across from her in an orange jumpsuit. He had lost weight. His eyes were hollow. The golden boy had become a ghost. Lauren, he whispered when he saw her. You came. She sat down calmly. Her designer suit and diamond earrings were a stark contrast to the man who had once made her feel small and worthless. I came to tell you something, she said. Chase leaned forward desperately. I am sorry. I am so sorry. I know I can never make up for what I did, but please, please let me be part of James's life. He is my son. Lauren slid a document across the table. This is paperwork terminating your parental rights. Permanently. Chase's face crumbled. No, no, you cannot do this. Lauren's voice was steady as steel. You blocked my number while I was giving birth to him. You planned to take him from me. You called him an obstacle. She stood, smoothing her jacket. You made your choice that night in the hotel room. Now I am making mine. She walked toward the door. Lauren, wait, please. Lauren. She paused, but she did not turn around. The night you blocked me was the last time I ever thought about what you wanted. Goodbye, Chase. The door closed behind her. She walked out of the prison into blinding afternoon sunlight. Her phone buzzed with a video from Mason, James taking his first real steps, arms outstretched, face split with a gummy smile. Lauren watched it 3 times, laughing through tears. Then she got in her car and drove toward her future, a future she had built from the ashes of everything that tried to destroy her. Behind her, the prison grew smaller in the rear-view mirror until it disappeared completely. Ahead, the road stretched open and free. And somewhere in Queens, a little boy with his mother's eyes was learning to walk on his own 2 feet, just like she had. Now, if you are ready to take this journey with me, I have one small request. Before we dive in, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. That way, you will never miss stories like this one. And if at any point during the next 90 minutes you feel something, whether it is anger, hope, satisfaction, or recognition, drop a comment below. Tell me which moment hit you the hardest. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they are stronger than they know. Your engagement helps more people find stories that matter. All right? Take a deep breath. Let us begin. Closing statement. Thank you for staying until the very end. This content was carefully researched, thoughtfully constructed, and manually edited by our team. Every word was chosen with intention. Every scene was crafted to deliver not just entertainment, but meaning. We believe stories have the power to heal, to inspire, and to remind you of your own strength. If this one did that for you, please share it forward. Someone out there needs to hear it today. Until next time, take care of yourself. You matter more than you know.